welcome to the panel discussion and Odyssey to your next alma mater. I'm Rajdeep Pundir, the founder of Revisor and also your host for today. As a company, we are an educational support company, which has helped high school students to accomplish their academic goals. We have helped over about 3,000 odd students in the last 5 years for different standardized tests like SAT, ACT, AP courses, as well as we help with the academic tutoring for IGCSE, IB, and A levels. Today, especially, we all are here to provide the audience a glimpse into the journey of three amazing, brilliant students who are going to share the lessons that they have learned in the last 4 years of their journey preparing for their dream college, the obstacles that they have faced while preparing for any of these exams. So you can kind of follow their footsteps. And if in case you have more questions about anything related to admissions, please feel free to post it to to the current speakers today. The format for today's webinar is going to be very straightforward. We are going to have a panel discussion for roughly about 9 to 10 questions that we have pre-decided. They would be largely from three different verticals: the test prep, academics, and college applications. These are the three main pillars in your college application, right? And post this, and ideally that should take about 45 minutes. Every speaker will present their viewpoint on every topic. They will explain what they have done differently for that particular thing, right? And after 45 minutes, we will make the floor open for Q&A session. So if in case you guys have any questions, feel free to put it on the chat section at any point of time. However, having said that, at the end, in the last 15 minutes, you guys must be on mute right now, right? So you may not have the option to unmute yourself. In the last 15 minutes, I'll probably allow you to unmute yourself. And if in case you would like to ask questions directly, you could do that as well. I hope that's clear. But however, meanwhile, if you have any question at any point of time, feel free to post that question in the chat section, and speakers in between will try and answer those questions. Yeah. Great. Thanks, guys. Let's begin with the introduction of the speakers straight away. And let me go to Dhruv first. Yeah, Dhruv, over to you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm just confirming that you can hear me. Okay. So I'm Toefl Shrestha. I'm an undergraduate student, and I'm currently studying at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. In terms of academic stuff, I'm pursuing a double major in math and econ. In terms of non-academic stuff, I like teaching, so I've been doing a couple of teaching things over the summer. I'll be a teaching assistant this fall, and I also had the opportunity to delegate at the UN in March, I think, this year. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, I think that's a bit about me, and I'd like to pass it on to Aditya.
Hey guys, I'm Aditya. I'm currently a freshman at Cornell University. I'm doing my undergraduate in psychology, and I might also do a minor in cognitive science along with my major. I applied early decision, so Cornell was the only application that I sent in, and that was, yeah. And I had to withdraw all my other applications as well. And apart from academics, I love to do a lot of music and a lot of violin and a lot of music, basically. So, and of course, yeah, thank you for joining. This is cool.
Thanks, Aditya. Over to you, Pranav.
Hey guys, good morning. Thank you, Rajdeep, sir, for having me. My name is Pranav, and I studied at NTS Koramangala, and I'm an undergraduate student at Boston University. I'll be majoring in business administration with a double specialization in finance and business analytics. I applied to a total of 21 schools. I was accepted at 7 and waitlisted at 3. I was rejected at the others. Yeah.
Great. Thanks for the short introduction, Pranav. Okay, great. So I think you guys would have understood that the speakers are coming from different backgrounds. So 2 of them are from CBSE. 1 of them have actually done IB at TISB. They're also, all 3 of them are going to do different majors. So if in case you have questions related to major, you could do that. I think Dhruv forgot to mention one thing very specific and special about him, that he actually joined a college in UK last year, and then he did a transfer this year to US, to University of Michigan. right? So it's a college transfer as well. So that's a new story. And if in case you have any questions around that, Dhruv will be more than happy to answer. Which also showcase that it's not necessary always that you need to know the right path from day one, right? I mean, you are bound to do mistakes and you will probably rectify it and do well. On the other hand, we have Aditya who applied early, got into one college, and he had admission, I think, by end of October. Right, Aditya? So
End of December, yeah.
end of December. So he had like 5 months completely free because he knew which college is going to. And just on the side note to add, Aditya is an amazing musician. So I would request Aditya at the end to probably put his YouTube channel link somewhere at the end of the webinar. Yep. Great. With that, I think let me go into the questions straight away. And I will take up the first category, which is the test prep. And the first question that we have is, when did you start preparing for your SAT or for ACT? And let me go to Aditya first for this question.
So I started preparing for the SAT between my summer break, between 10th and 11th. I thought it'd be a good idea to get her out of the way because I was going to start IB, and the course load in IB is supposed to be very rigorous. So because of that, I spent the entire summer from 10th to 11th just grinding out and for SAT. Luckily, I got it out of the way in one attempt. So I didn't have to go at it again for several months. And after my SAT, I was pretty much ready to take on the workload for IB.
Got it. Anything specific that you want to share, Aditya, for SAT prep that people should keep in mind?
I definitely think it would help to go to a coaching center if you are not self-motivated, because it gives you the unit test papers, and it gives you the entire course content. If you are good at phasing yourself, you could go for Khan Academy. They're great resources there as well. I personally did not have much difficulty with math because the level wasn't that high. For me, English was more something that I had to work more on that. But of course, it came with practice as well.
Any advice on how you, how you resolve your English issues? Anything?
For
any
me
tips?
personally, everyone says, read. That's the only way. But when you're studying for the SAT, you cannot read like 5 months, like a week before, and expect to do well in English, right? I think it's a lot to do with practice personally, and the way that you see the questions. And once your mind is trained to view the question in a certain way and read the passages in a certain way, it becomes entirely easier. And it also consumes so much lesser time because you're so used to reading in a certain way. I definitely used a ton of test papers, which provided me with a lot of resources for test papers, but I also went ahead and did a lot of past papers that are available online.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Aditya. Moving on to Dhruv.
Okay, so my story is a little bit different because I wasn't considering applying to the US until the summer before grade 12. So I hadn't started any prep before that. And I didn't even know I was going to apply abroad before that. I was preparing for engineering entrance exams in India. But I started considering to keep my options open. And if I could do things differently, I would have started considering to do that much before, maybe at least like 6 months to a year before. I took the SAT twice, in May and in October. And I think in both those situations, I had something going on parallelly with the SAT. I was also like, there was some school exam maybe or some extracurricular stuff. So I wasn't at any point of time fully focused on the SAT. I maybe should have been, but similar to Aditya, I had problem with English and problems with English and not with math. So I went to reviser for English, and I think that's probably the only reason why I did well on the English section, because CBSE English isn't very helpful when you're preparing for the SAT, if I'm being entirely honest.
Thanks, Dhruv. Over to you, Pranav.
Yeah, so I wrote my SAT twice. First in the 11th grade December, and second time in the September my 12th grade. Personally, I would say try to get the standardized test over with as soon as possible, preferably before 12th starts, because you'll have a lot of application work and stuff like that. The ideal time to start preparing would be this after your 10th grade, the summer after your 10th grade. But I was quite late to start, and I started in October. So I feel like I could have prepared more. And the second attempt was like I wanted to attempt in May before my 12th grade started, but because of COVID and stuff like that, it got pushed to September, and that like really crowded things up and increased the pressure. And so, yeah, so I'd say take it before 12th grade.
Got it. Any tips? Did you also struggle with the English, just like all the other speakers here?
Yeah, so I really had a bad time with reading in English, and I could have improved reading. Like Rajit, Aditya said, you can't improve reading 2 days or 2 weeks before the exam. It's a long-term thing, and writing personally is like you can do well in writing if you just learn the rules. Like it's a very specific set of rules, and it's more about practice. Reading, it comes naturally, and the more you do, the more you get.
Yeah, I agree with all the speakers, and I'll just go a step ahead and say even 3, 4, 5 months is not good enough, right? Because it's your comprehension skills. There is no magic bullet that anybody can give you and say, hey, here it is, and now you'll be good at reading, right? So if in case there are students who are in grade 9, grade 10, guys, start reading, right? There's a reading list which is there on College Board and Khan Academy. Start reading different books. Or on top of it, start reading articles from Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, right? And obviously take these articles from different genres, right? Take history, take humanities, take fiction, take US history, founding documents, right? Read different stuff, not just the fiction stories, because that's not gonna help ultimately, right? That's one. And as Aditya really, put it correctly, that what you need to understand is you need to understand the psyche of the examiner. Why this question is set up in this particular format, and where exactly is asking you to go and check for the answer in the passage, right? So once you have actually understood the psyche of the examiner, and that you can do only by doing past year papers, right? So pick up those past year papers. Even if you're not taking any help, guys, pick up the past year papers. Khan Academy is a very good resource, no doubt on that, but the level is a bit lower. So if you want to jump to the next level, make sure you are looking at the past year papers and then start working on it. Yeah. Great. With that, let's move on to the next question. And that's again about next standardized test, which is called AP courses. These are advanced placement courses. I'll quickly give a brief in terms of what AP courses are. So just like we have IGCSE, IB, and CBSE as different curriculum in India, AP is a curriculum which is followed in US in some of the colleges. And hence they study all throughout the year for AP. However, for students outside India, outside US, they have an option where you can write the exam for APs. And these are the exams which happens only once a year, which is in the month of May. Now, why should we ideally do it? There are 2, 3 different reasons why one writes it, right? One is the major reason is you want to strengthen your application and you want to showcase that you have done more than what your peers have. Obviously, there is asterisk to it that you shouldn't compromise on your academics and then do this. First, it's your academics and then your AP courses. Second, people do it because you also get credits. So you earn credits while you are in India, and hence indirectly it helps you to save cost and save time. So you can actually, so the last week when we had speaker, there was a speaker who actually did 5 APs in between grade 10th and 11th, and he actually can graduate 1 year early now because he already has those credits in place, right? So you can obviously save some cost there. So these are different reasons why one can write AP and one should write AP. Again, that will vary from board to board. With that, let me open it for the speakers here and let's try and understand what they did. Let me go to Pranav first.
Yeah, so I took one AP, that was AP Microeconomics. In terms of college credit and cost, reducing cost, I think APs are a great thing to do. But take the APs only if you're sure you can manage school academics, application work, which is the essays, and you're done with all of your standardized testing. Because you can't compromise on that. And I believe APs are not as important as that. And if you are doing APs for the credit, make sure to check. So for example, if you are doing a finance major, you would have a calculus course in the first year. So you will receive credit only if you get 4 or 5. And some colleges give, colleges in Texas are more lenient regarding that. I think you get 3 and you're good. But if you check that you get credit for your major before you actually do the AP, and if you're like, make sure to do the AP only if you have time, because it's not compromise good thing. I'll pass it on to Drew.
So I kind of agree with everyone that's been speaking right now. I personally have not taken the APs, but over the last summer, I was able to teach some junior and senior year kids from American high schools. And purely based on their feedback, I think it absolutely helps to take APs and transfer them for college credits. The issue is you may not know what course you want to do in college, and you may not know whether the AP that you're going to take is going to help. But there's some standard ones that you can transfer regardless of your course, maybe like AP micro or macroeconomics or AP calculus. I would have probably taken them if I had the time. However, as everyone said, if you're following maybe a different curriculum and are already anxious and already under pressure, I would recommend focusing on school and SAT prep and not taking an extra burden on your plate.
Over to you, Aditya.
So I personally took the IB, so I didn't have to take any APs. From what I know and from what I've seen from my friends as well, if you take the IB, generally you do not need to take the APs at all. It's more or less at the same level, unless you would want to save tuition costs and stuff. But from an application perspective, it's all the same level. So if you have an IB course, I would recommend you not waste time taking APs, unless there's a specific subject that your school isn't offering an IB, then you can go outside and take the AP for that. Since the rest of the 2 other speakers spoke about it from saving costs and getting credits, I think I'll talk about it from an application perspective more. I definitely think if you are in a CBSE board or an ICSE board or any other board apart from IB, APs, if you take APs, they definitely show that you're capable of taking on the rigorous college courses, advanced and more higher level. So generally, because the Indian boards are not as recognized, not that the US does not accept it, but since it's not as recognized, the rigor is not as known. I would recommend taking an AP so that colleges know that you're capable of taking those courses. It shows that you are a competitive student, because at the end of the day, you would want to show your admission officers and the people that are evaluating your application that you are taking the as rigorous classes as you can and that are available to you, and not slacking off and taking all the easy ones.
Right. Yeah. Makes sense. So I think we have a couple of questions, guys. We'll try and answer those questions at the later, unless the speakers are able to answer them on the chat directly. Yeah. Great. So yeah, as I said, right, different people have different perspective. Nobody knows whether it's really helping the application or not. And as Aditya mentioned, you anyway get you. I think Aditya forgot to mention that for the HL courses that you do in IB, you get credits for those courses. So I'm assuming
I forgot to mention that. So if you take an IB HL, if you get a 5, 6, or 7 on your final transcript, that basically gives you credit as well, equal credit as colleges. So that's as good as AP credit anyway.
Exactly. So that's one of the reasons why students who are doing IB already shouldn't be doing the AP courses, especially the ones that they're doing as HL, because it's just completely redundant. And as Aditya rightly mentioned, so if you are, let's say, doing maths and sciences in school, and then you want to do a history outside, then you could take a AP history or AP literature, something around that line. Some people also say that you can choose your APs depending on the course that you wish to apply for. Right? If you want to showcase that you have additional strength and like you have done more than what your peers have. So that could also be an option. It's always debatable, guys. And for me, the bottom line, how should I decide whether I should take it or not and how many should I take it? The pure parameter is, look at the preference. So it has to be your academics first. If your academics are not in place, don't even worry about anything else. First, just make sure you have good academic grades. then your standardized test, maybe SATs, ACTs, then you have APs. That's the order of priority, right? If the first two are sorted, then go to the third one. If they're not, then don't even think about the third one, right? And you obviously have to plan it well ahead of time because AP happens only once a year, as I've mentioned. So yeah, I think proper planning is required there as well. Great. I think with that, let's move on to the next section, which is the academic section. And I think generally I get to hear this a lot from parents and the students say that if we got bad grades in 9th, 10th, or 11th, now we are all set to go to college. We really want to do well. Do you guys think that they have lost a chance, or do you think they can compensate for it? They can work for it, and how can that happen? And let me start with Dhruv, probably.
That is a good question because I've heard a lot of people ask me this as well. And like the first thing I'm going to say is that colleges in the US don't expect your grades from the 9th grade to the 12th grade to be a straight, linear, positively sloping line. They know how our CBSE or ICSE boards, or actually for that matter, any board works. And they've dealt with this before, so they expect you to have a general upward trend. So if your grades went down in 11th grade, that is perfectly fine, as long as you're willing to show that you're putting in effort.
Guys, did Dhruv froze for you guys as well, or is just me?
Yeah.
He did? Okay, Pranav, you can take it over.
Yeah. So I'll be talking from the CBSE point of view because I studied in a CBSE school. I think that most colleges know that in 9th and 11th, CBSE students usually tend to dip in their scores, and 10th and 12th are the years where usually everyone picks up and does well. So like if you're in 12th grade, what's done is done. So if you're and you didn't do in 9th, 10th, and 11th, it's fine. But try to make sure you do well in 12th and get good predictives and recommendation letters which show trust your teachers, show that your teachers trust you to do well in your finals. Personally, I didn't do well in the 9th and 11th, but my predictives and the final score was good, and I had a recommendation letter as well, a good recommendation letter from my principal. But there's also a huge upside to the colleges knowing that 9th and 11th graders don't do that well, because if you do well, it really separates you from other applicants. I think that if you're in 9th grade, you should really try to make sure you do well in your core subjects. Yeah, I'll pass it on to Aditya.
I love this question because I've actually been in this situation myself. So in 9th and 10th, I took IGCSE, and my grades were, I would say I was very happy with my grades at that point. I was pretty much at the top, and then I shifted to IB in 11th and 12th, and that was a major transition. Especially because there were math especially was a huge jump for me. So in the beginning, I myself saw a clear dip, and that really concerned me because everywhere around I was hearing colleges want to see an upward trajectory, otherwise they're going to know that, the dip and everything. So I was really worried about that. And of course COVID came, and I'm sure everyone in my grade would always agree with me that it was hard to concentrate with online classes, because you lose that rigor and everything. So I've been in that position. I personally think it's okay if you are dipping a bit. For me, I think my saving grace was 9th and 10th. And the courses, the classes that I took were rigorous enough to show that I was capable of taking it. And IB as well was, even though I did dip a little bit and I was very concerned about that, there are places to explain that on your application as well. I took advantage of an academic progression section on your Common App, and that is where that's a place I would recommend you, rather than justifying it or blaming your grades on a particular reason. I would say it's better to explain it in a positive way and what you've learned from them, and say that you're willing to make that improvement and how you've learned from that, rather than playing the blame game. I had a bad teacher or something like that. And personally, since 12th grade, I saw a massive improvement in my mid-year assessment. So that was when exactly I was applying to Cornell. When and I got my mid-year assessments right after I applied. And since I saw a huge improvement, which was what I talked about as well in my common application, I sent it straight to the college saying, hey, as I talked about in my application, here are my grades and my transcript. And it seems to have reflected well. And I sent it as a supplementary material to them. And I definitely think you should not be as worried if you see a dip, because there's always places to make it up if you're still in 12th grade. And if you have that strong background behind you, it's okay to dip a little bit because you have that profile behind you. Right? Yeah.
Got it. That's amazing thing, Aditya. Thanks for mentioning about that specific section. So, guys, if in case, Aditya, if you can also put it on the chat section, I think that would probably help.
Sure. Yeah, I can share.
Dhruv, anything that you want to add? I know you got cut in between.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. There was a power cut. I just wanted to quickly also add that, wait, you can hear me, right? Just confirming. Yeah, okay. I just wanted to quickly add that colleges in the US also take a lot of other things into consideration apart from just your academics. So if you're a really good sports person, or if you're a really good debater, or if you're really good at something else, that counts almost as much as you being really good at studies. So I think you shouldn't be too worried if your grades are not great in like one of your exams.
Having said all of that, for all the parents here and the students, guys, wherever you are, whatever has happened in the past, you can't change it. But for the future, please try and make sure your grades are as high as possible. I guess that's what all the speakers here wanted to say. Not directly, but indirectly, that grades do matter. They are the most important component in your application. If you're not done well, it's fine. Whatever has done is done. But going forward, make sure your grades are as high as possible. And then they're looking at all the other stuff.
So
Right,
I just want to add one thing. As
yeah,
Rajdeep sir said exactly, grades are like the #1 filter that colleges usually use. After you pass that checkpoint, they start looking at extracurriculars. So it's really important that you get past that filter first.
yes, exactly, right? So that's the entry in the gate. First, you have to get the entry in the gate. Your application could be stellar profile, but if you don't get the entry in the gate, they're not going to look at all the application, right? I mean, they get 10, 20,000 application every year. They can't read the essays for every candidate. Let's just be honest, right? So there has to be some filtration criteria, and that filtration criteria will come from objective things and not from subjective things of like application. Yeah. Great.
One more thing, sir. Like for CBSE and ICSE students, 12th grade predictives are the most important things. Like you cannot like make, if you do well in your first semester 12th grade, they will give you good predictives usually. So try to make sure that you do well in that first semester. Like put all your effort into it.
Right.
Also,
And
one more
hence
thing.
it's important. Yeah, just to I'll circle back
Sure,
again,
yeah.
Aditya. Just to add to it, because you have your predictors are really important grade 12, so you have to do well in your acads in the first semester. Hence, it's important to make sure all your SAT, AP, and everything is done before that, so that you're just purely focused on your academics, especially in that first semester of your grade 12. Yeah, sorry, Aditya, please.
So I just wanted to add, I've seen that a lot of colleges are even more, they take it one step further. So UCs, for example, in my opinion, are more focused on academic grades than other colleges. It's because they receive so many applications, and I think that is when you keep your grades.
Aditya, your voice is breaking. I'll come back to you in the next question. I think there's some problem with the speaker. Okay. With
Yeah,
that,
I
let me
think
move
what
on.
Aditya was trying to say is that some colleges care more about school academics more than anything else, even standardized tests, because I think UCs are test blind now. They don't
Yeah.
take the SAT scores. Like even if you have 1510 or 1300, you're considered the same.
Yeah. Okay, with that, let me move on to the next question. What people think colleges want versus what actually colleges want. More philosophical, but let's try and see what these guys have to say. Let me go to Aditya first.
Yeah, so throughout my high school, I was very worried because I was someone who was very focused on music and psychology and that whole thing. I was very committed to these four things, the activities that I was doing. And I was scared that I wasn't diversifying myself as much. and I wasn't showing. I felt that I was a little more unidimensional than the other students who were doing month clubs, basketball, president of this and everything. Over time, I realized that colleges aren't looking for people who just take part in like a million different clubs or activities. They want to see so much more commitment and depth to each single activity. They want to see meaning and passion behind each activity rather than seeing that you do it just for application. Because I know that of people who've done activities just for the sake of writing it down in their application, and it didn't really help as much. And they took, like I said, basketball and chess, this club, that club, that club. I personally think that it's so much more important that you deep dive into your own passions and interests and see what you can build around a profile around that. So you can connect your volunteer community service around that. You can do your internships around your own interests rather than diversifying so much and showing that you're not a focused person. That being said, though, I still think it's important that you show college. Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're back.
So
You're back.
I think it's important that colleges see that you're also open to explore new fields and classes there. So definitely mention that in your essays as well. So you show what you're focused on currently and what you would hope to explore in the future.
Great. We'll move on to Dhruv.
Yeah, so this again is a question that everyone has all the time, right? We've heard stories about people who, talk about, oh, I had like these abnormally high grades and these ungodly number of extracurricular activities, and I cured 3 diseases and then I got into college. That is intimidating, and that made me anxious, and that is not actually the case. As Aditya said, you should try to show colleges that you are focused on something, but at the same time, you should also diversify a little bit so that they don't think you're only focused on one thing. And I think like there's 5 major bullet points that like make your application well-rounded. There's like academic stuff, which is not only your grades, also like competitions and other things. Activities, obviously, like the ones that help you build transferable skills, the ones that help other people, like volunteering and mentoring and tutoring and stuff. Any skill that you started as like a leisure activity, but is now something that's really important to you, like music or sport or anything that, I mean, even certifications like, playing an instrument, all of that can kind of help you make your application more rounded. But at the same time, they shouldn't think you're all over the place. So if you have something that you want to focus on, you should also feel free to do that.
Pranav, you can go ahead.
Yeah. So like I agree with Dhruv and Aditya. I think you have to be well-rounded and focused in some parts where you're passionate. Admissions officers want to know why your passion fit into their colleges. It doesn't even have to be about your major. Like it could be in your application about whatever extracurriculars. Make sure that you show the colleges that why your interests fit into their college specifically, and how far you're willing to go to continue pursuing it. And that's what shows who you will be in the future. Yeah.
Great. Let's move on to the next section. I know we are going a bit slow. Let's move on to the next section, which is application section. And I'll straight away jump onto the first question, which is very, very common. I'm not a US citizen. Do I still have a chance to get into top colleges, or am I at a disadvantage? Right. I know we have one US citizen here, Aditya. I think the other 2 folks are not. Let me start with Pranav here first.
Yeah, so I am not an American citizen. So in terms of aid, I think colleges prefer to give it to American citizens more than international students. But in terms of application, I'm not sure if it reduces your chances. But it for sure shouldn't discourage you from applying, because people have done it before, and you might as well become one of them. Like you can. Yeah, I'll pass it on to you.
Okay, so I agree that in terms of need-based financial aid, American schools, colleges do prefer American citizens because they're eligible for federal funding and for state funding. But in terms of merit-based scholarships, they give it to anyone who has merit. So if you're an international student and you're looking for scholarships as a criteria, you should I mean, that is not something that you would be at a disadvantage at. And the second thing is that most American colleges, their distinction is not between US citizen and non-citizen. Their distinction is between in-state and out-of-state. So if you're in-state and if you're applying to a college in a particular state, that is one criteria. But if you're an American citizen from a different state, you're essentially in the same boat as all of the non-US citizens. So I don't think it puts you at a disadvantage in terms of your application, but maybe in terms of need-based financial aid. Aditya.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I completely agree with what Dhruv said. College don't see between international American. There are colleges that look at more in-state students and they give preference to them. One example is UT Austin, who reserves probably as much as 80 to 90% for Texas residents itself, which is why it's hard for international students to get in. That being, the admission probability does not change between international and American citizens. What changes is the amount of federal aid that they're willing to give you. As an Indian citizen, if you are applying to a need-aware, so there's need-aware and need-blind universities, and need-aware universities are ones that would give you your admission based to give you federal aid or financial aid. And since Cornell is a need-aware university, a lot of international students were hesitant about applying for financial aid because they thought it might affect their admission chances, which is completely true. Because if they're not able to give you the financial aid that you require, they would reject your application. So definitely check if your university is need-aware or need-blind. It would really help, and depending on that, you can choose whether to apply for federal financial aid or not. Since I was a US citizen, I wasn't that in much of need of financial aid, but I thought I would still apply for it anyway. The funny thing is usually apply for financial aid along with the application, but since I applied early decision, I got my early decision acceptance, and after that I went ahead and applied for financial aid. So that was the advantage that ED gave me.
Oh, interesting. So you basically applied for the financial aid later. You knew that they have given you the admissions any which ways, and now you can go ahead and apply.
But since I'm an American citizen, I mean, it wouldn't have made a difference. Which is, yeah.
That's right. Correct. Exactly. Great. I know we are going to take this question about the scholarships again, so I will not deep dive too much into that again. Let's move on to the next question, and which is largely about, I don't know which subject I wish to study in college, right? So will that affect my admission chance? And that's a very, very common question, right? And Dhruv, do you want to go ahead first?
Oh, absolutely. So when I was in grades 11 and 12, I was all over the place. I applied to the US for computer science the first time I applied. I applied to the UK for econ and math related courses. I was writing engineering exams here. I was applying to Ashoka here, and I was all over the place. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then the next year, I knew what I wanted to do. I took admission in the UK, and then after 2 terms there, I transferred to the US to do the same thing that I wanted to do, math and econ. Now, the major difference, and I think this is a really, really big advantage if you're applying to the US, the major difference between the US and a lot of other countries is that if you're applying to a US university, by default, unless it's like a professional business school or like a medical school, by default, your application is undecided. As in, by default, your major is not selected before you apply. So you give, you can talk to them about what majors you're interested in, what minors you're interested in, but they don't expect you to have decided that before you apply. So you can change your major, you can change your course and all of that, and you'll be applying to the university. So your application isn't disadvantaged that much if you don't know your major. However, if you're applying to like a country like the UK, you apply to the course and not to the university. So you're applying to a course. If you get in, you're sticking to that course and you can't change that course, which is why I think applying to the US is definitely, it has its advantages for sure. And I'll pass it on to Aditya.
Exactly like Dhruv said, in the US especially, the great thing about US colleges is that they're very open and they allow you to explore new majors, and you do not have to go in with a selected major. And especially some colleges like UWash, uh, completely, even if you have an intended major, or UPIT as well, they just put everyone in the same pool as undecided, and you choose after your first year once you go and explore. So they actually encourage you to go out and try new two subjects, which is really cool. That being said, if you do know your major, the only way it would make difference, in my opinion, is it gives you a better idea of your profile, because your ECs would be more aligned to your major and you would know what you want to do exactly. But even if you're not sure, like I was in the same position about 2 years ago, I had no idea what I wanted to do in 10th. Luckily, I took psychology and I really loved it. But even if you're still undecided, I would say stick to your passion. Like I said before, stick to your interests, take up extracurriculars, internships, that anything that interests you. Because at the end of the day, that's all colleges want to see. It's okay if you don't have a subject in mind. You can even say that I would like to go and explore a new subject, which is, they would love that. Lots of liberal arts colleges actually love for you to try and explore new options. So I really don't think it puts you at a disadvantage. Um, I, if you are unsure about your activities, like I said before, just go by pure passion. What interests you the most?
Over to you, Pranav. Anything
Yeah.
to add?
Yeah. So, like Dhruv and Aditya said, I think for private universities, it's mostly like you're undecided for the first year. But for public universities, I want to add that you mostly apply to their to their program, and for example, all the UCs. So it's not that easy to change your major. So once you get into a major, you can't switch that easily. Yeah. So, and if you're also, if you're like you're undecided, try to integrate why you're undecided, uh, and why you have so many things in your profile, and into who you are as a person, uh, which you should portray yourself in the essays, and why you're so like show why you're good at so many things. Yeah, that's it.
Sorry,
All
I
right.
just wanted to add one small thing.
Yes. Yes.
So with regards to how you apply as a major and about your program, I know it's not a great idea. So if you're saying applying to a more competitive major like computer science, I I know the easy way would to go like apply for something like gender studies or competitive, or like environmental studies, and then transfer into your second year. I know people who have applied to Stanford for like public health and all that, but it didn't really work out in the end for them. I would really discourage you from doing that, because one, it not only, because all your activities that you've done would obviously align with your major that you're applying for. So if you apply for like environmental science with a complete CS background, um, I mean, it's fine if you have a few CS activities, but if your whole profile is CS based, they would be like, they would know that you're kind of trying to. Second thing is, if you actually get into that college and get stuck into that major, it might be very hard for you to change in that second year, and you would have to be stuck with it for the rest of your 4 years.
Yeah, I agree with you, Aditya, there. Yeah, I have seen such cases in the past. And especially shifting from, let's say, getting into the engineering school would be the most difficult one. So if you're planning, if you really want to do engineering, but you think that, hey, let me get into whatever, let's say physics or econ or something, and then I'll switch, it's going to be really, really difficult. I know colleges which have like 1% acceptance rate for the transfer cases, which is, I mean, next to impossible, right? Great. With that, let me move on to the next question. And that's very famous question for all the parents and the families around. Should one give preference to the college ranking, the major that you want to do, the cost or the scholarship associated with it, uh, while you're deciding your college? And what were the factors that you guys have considered? How did you arrive to a particular college that I want to apply to these, and I want to finally, between the one that you got selected to, I want to go to this college, right? What was the thought process behind it? I think it'll be, let's start with Pranav, because I know you applied to TSET 21 university, which is unheard of. I'm sure he had to he had to go through a lot of grind. So let's hear what made Pranav apply to 21 university, and then finally out of 8, how did he select this Boston University?
Yeah, so this is an extremely personal preference. Like, you are going to stay there for 4 years of your life, and even after the degree, you're probably going to be there. Like that's the location you'll be mostly. So for me, I wanted to be in the East Coast, and for me, location mattered a lot because I'm looking to get into finance, and so job opportunities and internship opportunities really matter. And weather and stuff really wasn't a factor, but if you can't adjust to the cold, I think you should look into it, but it shouldn't be as big a factor. Like make a list of things that you would like. For me, it was location and job opportunities and internship opportunities. I mean, it's Boston, so like internship opportunities should be great. So, and after I was accepted, I had to choose between two colleges, which I thought were my best options. I got into Indiana University and uh, Boston University, which Indiana University is ranked fifth in finance undergraduate, and Boston University is ranked a little lower. But in terms of, I thought Boston would be a better option for me because the chances of the acceptance rate of Indiana University is very, very high. It's around 60%, and Boston University has a much, much lower acceptance rate. So I think that studying in like I would have a much better chance of studying with good students if there's a lower acceptance rate. So that as well is a good thing to look into. And Indiana University has these, so they take a lot of students, right? So they need to segregate them. So so in the second and third year, all finance majors compete to get into some classes. So that's a whole nother grind. And so if you don't get in there, getting the jobs, and it's harder to fit in, not fit in, it's harder to get, be with the best peers. So for me, uh, try to make a list of what you want, and then apply to those colleges and choose into what you choose what you get. Choose what to think about your options. Yeah, I'll pass it on to Aditya.
Sure. So I'll try to cover the factors that I personally considered. The first was, for me personally, the location and the weather was not a priority. I felt that if a college was offering a really good course and that one that I really was interested in, I would just adjust to the weather condition or the environment really quickly. So that wasn't a problem for me. The reason I applied to Cornell University was, one, I knew someone here personally. I had a family friend, so I'd visited the campus previously. I really liked the campus. And the second thing is, um, Cornell is known for interdisciplinary exploration. So one is, you can take up, since it's a more liberal arts college, you can take up any classes that you want, given that you pass your undergraduate requirements. So you're free to explore any class you want. And I love how you can combine your interdisciplinary interests. So I love music and psychology, and I'm gonna have the opportunity to combine both and take a music psychology course and study about auditory perception of music and everything like that. So I really think the classes that you're going to take and the variety is super important. The professors, for me, another thing was, I had a music psychology professor that I really admired and I wanted to work with. I, since my interests really aligned with her, and so I actually spoke about her in my essay as well. And I thought coming to Cornell would give me a really great opportunity to explore the field of music psychology as well. About rankings, I think that's a very controversial question thing to talk about. I personally think, in a way, even though people say you shouldn't look at rankings and prestige, of course, if there's a university that you really like and it's known to be a more healthy rather than toxically competitive, and you would be happy there, that's obviously priority. But I think it's also important to look at major specific rankings, because that's the only way that you'll know, since you can't go there and judge firsthand how the major is going to be taught. It's so much easier to go by rankings and where the major is taught best. Prestige as well. Of course, if you know that you're going to be super happy in a university, and the people there are more suited for you, if you prefer a small college, that's absolutely priority. If you're not sure about that, I still think prestige is a little important when you're applying for maybe masters, because it gives you a little more exposure. One is a network, of course, but it also opens up so many more opportunities that you might not have in a smaller college.
Got it. Over to you, Dhruv. Anything to add?
Pranav and Aditya have already covered a lot of the things that that are important when it comes to like shortlisting your colleges. And I didn't care that much about the location either, but if you have family in a certain place and you want to stay close to family, maybe that's something that you should care about. However, for me, I think it is purely based on what you think is most important. Because if for you it is important to change your major, if you're not happy with it, you should look at colleges based on that. If ranking is important, and if you're only willing to spend that much on college, if it's a really highly ranked college, you should look at that. If internships and opportunities and like employability and grad schools are more important, you should look at that as your first priority. But the other thing I'd like to quickly add is that you shouldn't choose which college you want to go to before you've got your acceptances and rejections. You should apply to like whichever colleges you shortlisted, wait for your acceptances and rejections as Pranav did, and then out of those offers, choose which one works best for you. I think that is also pretty.
Great. Let's.
Yeah. So
Yes,
make sure, like, if you want to apply to a college, start like it's better to apply to the college early than thinking about in the end, because like you shouldn't decide in December that you want to apply and start writing the essays then, because it really becomes a hectic situation. So try to make sure, decide your colleges and don't add to it. So whatever you want to apply to, go ahead and apply, but don't add to them later.
Sorry, and one more
Got it.
thing. I definitely think the most important thing to do while shortlisting colleges, I found, was to research. Just research. Go to their college pages, look at their faculty. Just go ahead and stalk all what the faculties are interested in, what internship opportunities are there, how the service of the volunteering opportunities that you might have. Maybe if you're interested in going and studying abroad, foreign internships, stuff like that. Do as much research as you can and mention it in your essays, because colleges love to see, since they're seeing so many applications, you really stand out if they see that you're someone who's really passionate about college and done your research later on.
Got it. Great. With that, let me move on to the next a bit technical question. How does the financial aid in US work? What is need-based, need merit-based, right? Need aware, need blind. How is it different for US citizen and non-US citizen, right? And I'll straight away move to Aditya for this question since he's a US citizen.
Sure. So I wasn't as involved in the financial aid process, but I'll talk from what I know as a there's two types, obviously, merit-based and need-based. Merit-based is based on your academic performance and your extracurriculars and how well you stand out as a student. Need-based is more of your financial capabilities, right? As far as I know, Ivy Leagues and other top colleges don't usually give out merit-based scholarships. It's more about need-based. And if you need to apply for a scholarship, you usually get it to need-based. There are, of course, colleges that absolutely give you, there's so many, I think there's a Presidential Trust and Boston College, one of them offers 100% tuition that's paid. That's based on a merit-based and how well you stand out as a student. So those are the two kinds that you apply. For merit-based, obviously, it does not, I don't think it matters if you're an American citizen or if you're applying international. It only the difference comes when you're applying to a need-based scholarship. I would recommend, since I wasn't in that much need of it, I thought I would apply to it, to Cornell and then get the admission and then see if I needed to get it. If you, I would recommend that if you're in the same situation that you're not in dire need of it, don't take the chance if you're an international student, if you're applying for financial aid. There are loans available as well. And I'm actually thinking of taking a job as well so that I can go ahead and contribute to that, to paying a bit of the tuition fee. There's actually also, okay, this is a little bit Cornell specific, but I think I'll just cover it a bit. There's a Tata Scholarship that a lot of people talk about, and it's given to about 10 Indian citizens. I think that is the, so if you're confident, I would say, about your profile and you think you really stand out, I would say go for it. But if you are really a little bit hesitant and think you would affect your chances, then you would not want to regret it in the end. So I'd say don't take the chance and apply if you don't really need it.
Got it. Okay. Anything else, Pranav or Dhruv, you guys want to add to this? Dhruv, okay, please go ahead.
Yeah, so since I've completed 1 year at university, I've also looked at, you know, the like I also have the perspective of what happens after you get in university, and a lot of universities in the US have departmental scholarships, as in the department that you're studying in, like the major that you're doing, the department that teaches that major, they have their own scholarships. You get research grants, and in the US, since your campus is so big, you always have part-time work and internship opportunities on campus to help you cover the costs. So even if you're not confident about applying to financial aid, you should still consider applying, because there are a lot of other ways to cover up the costs.
And if you're applying to merit-based scholarships, some universities have a requirement that you have to submit the application before this date, or you'd have another essay. So make sure to check that before you apply. And some colleges, I think, you're automatically considered for the merit scholarship.
Got it. Great. With that, let me move on to the last question that we had. When should one start writing the college essays? And according to you guys, based on your experience, how important are they? Right. And let's start with Dhruv.
This is also a question that came up in the chat. I think Bhaskar asked this question about college essays. Now, I'm from a CBSE background. So in high school, we didn't really have too much. We didn't have any essay writing. We didn't have any formal essays or any prompts that we had to read and analyze. That is something that I was very new to. And I only started looking at when I applied to colleges. And I took an academic writing class in university, and that class taught me one thing. Everything I did when I was applying was probably not the best way for you to approach things. You should start as early as you're able to, I guess. You shouldn't stress out about it and, start 3 years early or something, but you should start as early as you're able to. And you should try to work on your essays in an efficient way. So there's some essays which are going to be common across all of the universities that you're applying to. Like, why are you passionate about this major, or why are you applying to this major? You are applying to the major to all of the universities for the same reason, which is why your essay for why you are applying to this major would probably be very similar to all of these universities. However, things like why are you applying to this university is something that is specific to the university, and you should do some research before filling in those essays. So I think start early. And another problem that a lot of people have, I know I've taken up time, I'm just going to quickly add this, is that everyone tries to be a little too perfect about their essays from the beginning. So I write the first sentence, I don't like the first sentence, I start the first sentence over, I pick out a different verb. You don't have to do that. Start with the first draft, and even if you don't think it's great, it is your first draft and no one else is ever going to look at it. Get a first draft, even if it takes you a couple of days, then start working on it, then pick out things and fix things. And my English department professor said that you can't fix a car until you have a broken car to begin with. So your first draft is your broken car, and then you start fixing it. So I'm just going to pass it on to Aditya.
Sure. I think in my case, essays were one of the most, if not the one of the most important aspects of my application, especially because Cornell places, it's one of the few colleges places even more importance on its on the essays than academic stuff. So first you have the academic filter, and then after that it's from then on it's fully the essays and the extracurriculars. So I worked on my essay for about a month and a half, 2 months straight. One thing I definitely found helpful was, and even my seniors told me this, was when you lose your, probably if you lose your essay in a classroom, someone who picks it up should be able to trace it back to you. That's how personalized it should be and authentic, and it should be able to just speak about you fully rather than talking about things that aren't. I think just be as authentic as possible, as honest. The second thing is, don't force yourself. So I think a lot of people okay, I'm gonna spend 2 hours now, I'm gonna try and write the introduction of my essay, and nothing comes out. It's just completely mind block. So I used to actually spend time in my showers, in car rides, in classes, even thinking about just random ideas that popped in, and I would note it down, different teams that I liked, and I would just go one by one and just whatever came to my mind, I would just start writing it. So as soon as I started writing, I got the flow, and I was even more excited by that. And like Drew really said it well. You don't have, you don't have anything to work with. You can't really fix anything if you don't have anything to work with, right? So unless you go ahead and just start writing it immediately, there's no way that you get started. And so there's no point in procrastinating, even if it's a small seed of an idea, and it is just like one line. I would say just go ahead and note it down.
Yeah, so I would say the essays are really, really important for your application because it's those are the only things that show who you are. Academics just put you on top of a benchmark, like per se. So like I started really late with my essays. I started in September, which is quite late. I would say start in June or July, as soon as possible, basically, with your Common App essay, because I had my SATs to write, subjects had. Uh, I was preparing for my AP. I had the essays, and I had to focus on school academics. So I was really uh, on a time crunch. So and also tried. So like I was really bad at writing essays. So I tried to take opinion from a lot of people, and they'd all have different opinions. So I'd be flustered. So try to choose a few people who you think can really help you and stick to them. So that you're not confused by what people say. And I think uh, it it should be you that comes out, not their opinions. Try to take help, but don't let them change the content of the essay. Yeah.
Sorry, just one more thing I want to add. I think for me personally, I think it was very important that I think it's, of course, the parents want to get involved in the writing process, but I would advise for the first few drafts, at least, that you would let the student just dissect what's going on in their mind and paste it down on their note by themselves. And after they have a clean draft, what they're happy with, then maybe you could let your parents check in, because it's so easy that everyone gives you like completely different ideas and you get flustered like what idea do I take. I showed my essays to my counselors, my parents, my a few trusted friends, and it was very hard to choose what feedback to take because they were all conflicting as well. So at the end of the day, if you are faced with a challenge like that, I would say go with what you feel is best. That's it. Even if people are disagreeing with you, it's your essay, your choice. Even if you think it's a little bold or risky, if you feel that it presents you the best, then there's nothing like it.
Great. With that, I think we are at the end of the session with regards to the questions. And with that, I will also open the session for the people to ask questions. Let me unmute, guys. Yes, now you guys should have an option to unmute yourself. So if in case anyone has any question, feel free to post that. Also, feel free to put the questions on the chat section, and we will start taking the questions from the chat sections now. I'm starting from the bottom and I'll start moving upward, guys. Okay, there's a question from Ananya. What criteria do you have to pass in order to be eligible for a merit-based scholarship? I don't think there is anything fixed, Ananya. At least that's what I am aware of. Guys, anyone wants to add anything from the speaker side? Dhruv, yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly say that there are a lot of colleges that automatically consider you for merit-based scholarship just based on your application. For example, the University of Massachusetts Amherst. I honestly didn't know that I was eligible for merit-based scholarship until they offered it to me. So sometimes you just need to know that, well, you're automatically considered, and that's it.
Yeah, and then we have another question here from Kashvi. How important are letter of recommendation? How do we go about the process? Aditya, do you want to take this up?
Sure. I think they're immensely important because they show the admissions officers a completely different perspective of who you are. There are two types of recommendations. One's internal and external. So one is from the people that are teaching you in your 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. I think you would be my counselor advised me that I take teachers that have taught me only in 11th and 12th because they know me as the most recent. So that's for internal. I had to choose three counselors. I mean, sorry, three letters of recommendation. For that, I chose. I actually chose my math teacher, even though I was falling behind, because I thought that I was making a significant improvement, and I thought that would provide an explanation or a more positive side to the part where I was falling behind, and she would be able to explain that I was actually working harder and that my transcript didn't reflect that well. So even though it was a bit of a risk, I thought it would be smarter to let my math teacher speak about that as well. I obviously I think it's very important to take an LOR from the major specific teacher. So I took one from my psychology teacher, and since I took IB, I took another from my higher level because I spent more time with them. I think it's very important to know which teachers know you better, because you can go to 100 teachers and they'll give you like a very generic, yeah, he's a hardworking student and he's very like well behaved and all. But at the end of the day, you need to stand out because there's so many applicants. So even if it's a teacher that you were not comfortable in the beginning or a subject you're not comfortable in the beginning and you made a significant improvement, I really think that would make an impact. In terms of external, there's so many. So I actually took an LOR from my one is my internship, the volunteering service that I did, and an Indian Raga Fellowship, which is a music related thing. You can also take it from, there are actually some colleges that allow you to take peer LORs, which they ask you to describe your friend, and you can ask your friend to talk about you, or you can ask a music teacher or someone who's been with you for so long. I think it's just it all comes down to who knows you the best, and as a person, obviously, and understands you, because if you know them for the longest. Of
Yeah,
course, I think positions as well, it might make a difference if you know a principal or someone who's a head of a large company and you worked with them a lot. That would obviously give you a lot of, yeah.
yeah, I completely agree with Aditya and Dhruv. Like it's really like it brings in an external person coming and saying how good you are, and it brings their viewpoint, or else it's just you talking about yourself. And I think in terms of external recommenders, like try to get who you work with closely. Like if you worked in a company, don't go to the CEO or whatever. Like if you are managed by someone, try to get them to talk about you. I mean, the more personal it is, the better.
And I'll just quickly add to that by saying, well, if you're in a CBSE or ICSE school, there's a chance that you have a lot of people in your grade and very few counselors. So I went to DPS East, and my high school, I think, okay, 12th grade probably had a population of 400 to 500 kids. And we had one person who was officially designated as our counselor. So that is not a very sufficient ratio. So if you are considering applying abroad, you should reach out to your teachers as well in advance as you're able to, so that they know that, well, okay, this one kid came out and reached out to me and I have them in my mind for letters of recommendation. Also, sometimes, even if it's a teacher who you've worked with for 2 years, but you want them to highlight something particularly in your letter, you can always tell them that. You can always write down a couple of bullet points, and I'm sure they would be happy to put that in.
Great. Thanks. With that, we have another question from Pooja. How much time did you spend researching colleges? Okay. Anyone who wants to take that up? Aditya, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I think it was a very long process for me. So I had an initial shortlist of 30 colleges, and I was only allowed about 13 colleges. So I had to keep changing my shortlist. In the end, it came down to my predicted score and what my grades were capable of achieving. Obviously, you take a reach, match, and safety. That continuously changed as I looked more into the colleges and what I wanted myself. So as a whole, it was a whole almost half a year process of going from probably 30 to 40 colleges and narrowing it to one ED that I definitely want to do and 12 other if that didn't work out. It's obviously very important that you don't stick to your one plan because there's so many things that can change. Obviously, it all matters. It also matters on your grades. And if your grades don't allow you to reach a certain level, then you would have to change your college list accordingly.
Great. So we have a question from Mithun, I think, which is already answered by Pranav. Mithun, if there's any follow-up question, please let us know. I think there's a question from Tanya about the grade 11th and 12th scores, which is answered by Dhruv. Tanya, let us know if there's any follow-up question to that. There's a question from Mr. Sandeep. Does AP help if you're doing A or AS level in IGCSE? Yeah, Sandeep, I think it does, because you don't get credits for the AS and A-level courses again. So again, I think if you're writing it for your sending your college application, irrespective of the curriculum, it helps. If you're writing purely for your for the credits, then you'll have to go back and check. There are few courses, very few courses in AS and A-level for which you do get credits, like further math. If you're doing, you will get credit for that. But again, that will vary from course to course. So I think that's something that you'll have to go back and check. Yeah. Then we have a question from Bhaskar. Okay, I think that we have already taken up. How many, Ananya, how many AP courses do you think one should ideally take? Ananya, I guess we did try and answer that. 2 to 3 is what we recommend. But on top of it, if you can take more, you should take more. But remember, I mean, you should only take it if you're able to handle the pressure of AP courses, because they are not easy courses. They are college level courses, and it requires a rigorous time and effort that has to be put behind it, right? So make sure you're taking the AP course only if you're able to manage your school academics, your ST, and then the APs. Pooja has a question: do we need to do AP courses if we are doing IB? I think, Pooja, we have already taken up that question. I think Aditya answered that question. Dhruv, you have something? Yeah.
No, there's just a couple of more new questions all the way down.
Right. Yes. Now I'm coming to down. Okay, we have a question from Ms. Shubha. How many colleges should we apply to ideally? Understand that there is dream, target, and safety, but in total, how many to be on safe side? I guess like what I have gathered from the 3 speakers, there is nothing fixed. Like we have Pranav sitting at 21. We have Aditya sitting at 13. I'm not sure about Dhruv. And I think Dhruv and Pranav has something to add. Go ahead, guys.
Yeah, so like don't limit yourself to a certain number, because if you really want to apply, go ahead and apply. I mean, it's just a few more essays, unless it's the Ivy Leagues, which have like 8 essays. Like make sure you give time to that. So don't decide later that you apply and that you want to apply. So like go ahead and decide earlier that I'll apply to 20 colleges. I made the mistake of applying to 5 more. Like I limited myself to 15 colleges, and I wanted to apply to 5 more. So I applied, and it was quite late as well. So I would say don't make that mistake. Yeah.
I would just add to that and say that, well, so for example, the UK has a restriction on how many colleges you can apply to. You're only allowed to apply to 5 colleges when you're applying as an undergrad. However, the US is much more flexible in that they don't have that kind of an upper bound. But I'd also add that there's an application cost when you're applying to a college. So you shouldn't maybe have like those many that you don't need to apply to. If you know that there's 3 safety schools that you'd be willing to look at, and there's 2, really, really highly ranked ones that you want to apply to, go for it. But there isn't a restriction on the top. However, there isn't like an ideal number either. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I will add one more factor, right? The time
sure.
that you have to invest for those essays and doing the research for that college, doing the research, talking about that college. So I think there's a lot of work that goes behind, as Aditya already mentioned, right, earlier, that it's great if you have done a lot of research about the college, if you have looked at the professors who are there in that field, the internship opportunities and so on. The more you know about the college, the better it is, because you can portray all of that information in the essay. And I think the college will appreciate it that you are one of those who have done a lot of research and not just applied, right? So cost is obviously one factor, but I think for me, the major factor is, I think the time, right? So it's going to take a lot of time applying to universities because you have to write a lot of essays. So yeah, I think people generally say 10 to 12, 10 to 13 universities is an ideal number. But having said that, as Pranav mentioned, if in case you want to apply to more universities, decide well ahead of time. right? So that you have enough time to prepare and do the research and prepare for your essays. Don't apply to 15 and then, as Pranav said, now think about, hey, should I probably go ahead and apply for more, right? Do all of that research well ahead of time and finalize the numbers well in time so that you have enough time and you have a clarity what you're going to do. Because remember, you finally also have to write your 12th grade exams after you're done with your application, and you have to make sure you're close to your predicted scores. You can't go really, really off, right? Your admissions could be in jeopardy. So yeah, I think that's something that you should consider. We have another question. Yeah, sorry, Dhruv. Go ahead.
I also wanted to just say that you should be a little realistic as well about applying to colleges. I know that everyone wants to go to like the best colleges, and it is obviously possible to do that. But at the same time, if you're applying to the US and you really want to go to the US, you should also consider having at least a couple of safety schools in case you don't get into your like first preference university.
Yeah,
And
Pranav has said that.
I want to add that like the essays in all these prestigious universities are like really weird. Like, what would your roommate say about you? There's U Chicago has an essay that says, "What does zero mean to you?" Like, how do you answer that? It's like a 600-word essay. So, like, you will take a lot of time in these essays. So make sure to give time. Like, I made a big mistake and I applied really late. So go ahead and give the essays.
Yeah. Okay. With that, let's move on to the next question from Tanya. I'm in an IGCSE syllabus. Do I need to take TOEFL? Yes, Tanya. You'll still have to take TOEFL. But remember, it's more of a immigration requirement than an admission requirement, more than anything else. So I'm sure Aditya, who has done IB, must have taken TOEFL or IELTS, right? Aditya?
I didn't take it. So since I'm an American citizen and I took SAT,
Oh,
I
yes.
didn't have to.
Yeah, he's a US citizen as well, right? As I said, it's more of an immigration requirement than anything else, and hence he did not have to take it. But yeah, I mean, even if you're IB, IG, or whatever, you still have to take it. Trust me, it's a very, very straightforward. It's the simplest of exam, easiest of exam that you would have ever done. So don't be too bothered about the TOEFL. Then we have next question from Arav. What if we have extracurriculars but not at the high level? I mean, the short answer is if you don't have it, you don't have it. You can't do much about it. But I'll obviously let the speakers answer that. Will college consider those as extracurriculars also, and can good academic scores make up for that? And also, do CBSE students need to take TOEFL? I'll answer the last question, Arav. Yes, CBSE students definitely have to take TOEFL. I will let the speakers talk about the first three. Anybody who wants to go? Pranav, I think. Good.
Yeah, so it's not about, I mean, it is good to have extracurriculars at a high level. I mean, but I wouldn't say that it's required. Like, as long as you're able to show in your essays and your activities that you are interested in them. So, like, integrate that into your essays. For example, why your major. So, add that why, like, try to bring in why, bring in your extracurriculars into the essay. Like, for example, I did finance. That's what I wrote about. But like, if you like playing basketball, you can talk about what you feel while playing basketball and why you feel the same while studying something else or whatever. But try to integrate feelings into your essay. Like integrate the extracurriculars. Make sure it comes out that you love doing that thing more than accomplishments.
Yeah, Dhruv, please go ahead.
Now, I'm just going to say that rather than looking at how high level or how important you think an extracurricular is, you should also think about how you can frame it to sound fancier than it actually is. Because the colleges don't know exactly what you did. They only know what you're going to be writing on that application. So even if it's something that you don't think is really high level, as long as it's something that you put in effort into and you can frame well, I think you should still put it on your application. Also, I'm a CBSE student and I did not have to take TOEFL or IELTS, but I mean, it might be different, but possibly.
Some schools require that you take the TOEFL. So like NYU recommends that you have 100 plus in the TOEFL. So I would like, unless you're an IB student. So yeah, so some schools do recommend that you have a score or above in the TOEFL.
So I just wanted to add to the extracurriculars thing. I think there's a huge misconception that if you can only get into good colleges if you have like really, really big internships, maybe like a huge research facility, and the small volunteering things, going out to like an old age home and just helping out there every week doesn't make a difference. I think that's a completely misconception, because it all matters to how committed you are to it, how much time you spend, how passionate you are about it. Because at the end of the day, if you're going and doing, like, if there's this huge environmental club that you're part of and you're not really you're not committed to it, or you're not contributing it as much, and it's not connected to your profile, then they're going to know that you're just doing it for the sake of putting an application. So I really think it's more of a quality and how committed you are to it, rather than thinking of it at how high level or how impressive it will look. Because at the end of the day, if you are passionate about something, then you will put in the effort, you will put in the work, and that's what colleges would love to see, even if it's a small, low-key kind of extracurricular.
Yeah, I'll just add one more thing. I think Arab did ask about, can good academic scores make up for that? So Arab, yes, I have seen few profiles which are very, very academically driven. Like, let's say you don't have anything in the extracurricular, maybe because you're not interested, right? And your interests aligned towards academics, then you have to have a really good profile towards academics. And when I say that, it's not just your grade 9, 10, 11, 12 scores. It has to be something like Olympiads, NTSC, I mean, any sort of competition that you can participate. You should have a lot of AP courses, right? If you are making an academic profile, it has to be a very, very strong AP profile, and you showcase that this is what you're in, this is where your interests lie. And maybe you are one of those candidates who are more interested towards academia, academics, or research, right? Try and write research paper, white paper, right? So those are the things that you should start doing. It doesn't have to be that you have to have one sports, one instrument, one social service. Like, you don't have to just check the boxes, right? It's not that, because they look at these applications day in, day out, and they can easily figure out whether you have done this, or it's just for the sake of the application. I've seen people start writing blog posts and so on. Maybe a month, 2 months before, they will create a YouTube channel. Maybe a month, 2 months before the admission process start, and colleges can figure it out. So it doesn't really help. So only do it if you are passionate about it, because if you're passionate about it, you will be able to sustain it for a longer. Otherwise, if it's just being pushed upon you or forced upon you, you will kind of leave it in between, and that's what colleges will look at, and hence they will figure it out. And that's why these candidates are always talking about passion, because if you're passionate about it, you will continue with that activity for a longer duration, and you will not drop it in between the moment you have additional pressure, right? So that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, can I add on to that? So if like you're writing your essays, right? If you're not passionate about it, it's going to show, and they will know 100%. Like, if you have to write a 600-word essay with content, and if you're not passionate about it, they for sure will know, because they're reading so many applications. So make sure to write about something you're passionate about. Like, it could be even like making your bed in the morning. Like, it doesn't matter. Just be good about, like, make sure you like what you write about, what you like.
With that, we'll move to the next question from Kashi. What is an ideal SAT scores to be on the safest side? Kashi, that varies. There's nothing like a safe score, but just to give you a perspective, 1500 out of 1600 is the 99th percentile. So anything about that will at least make sure that no college will reject you based on your SAT scores. I always say that it's not an acceptance criteria. SAT is not an acceptance criteria. It could be a rejection criteria. They will never accept you based on your SAT scores. I have seen student who had 15, 17 in the SAT, and he got rejected in almost all the top colleges, right? So no SAT score guarantee you any college. Even if it's a perfect score, it doesn't guarantee you any college. However, it's an entry criteria. You get an entry inside the gate because of your good SAT scores, and then they will look at your application. Yeah. So if you are just to be on the safer side, 1500 plus would be a safer score, because you are in the top 1 percentile bracket. Yeah, Aditya, sorry, good.
Sorry, did I say something? No, that's okay. Yeah.
Okay, cool. We have another question here. If you have good academic scores, a decent number of extracurricular that you show interest in, but you have not attended many competition, would it necessarily impact your chances of acceptance? Anyone who wants to take it up? Dhruv? Yeah, good.
So we've been talking about this a lot, and I'll reiterate it. It is not possible for one person to do every single thing. You can't be good at all the sports and all the extracurriculars and have like 500 certificates to back that. If you have something you're passionate about and you can show that you're passionate about it in other ways other than competitions and stuff, that is perfectly fine. It as long as you're able to express how much effort you put into it, it doesn't make that much of a difference if you haven't attended those many competitions.
Yeah, also just to add on to that, I think there's a very specific section that you're talking about with regards to competitions. There's a place on the Common App called Academic Honors, which is usually where they provide you 5 places to enter all the competitions that you've been to, academic achievements that you've had in the past. I actually did not have too many competitions that I attended, so I didn't have much to put on that side. So I would say it's completely fine if you haven't. Counselors would obviously tell you it's great to have competitions. You should go for this competition, that. But I think there are other ways that you can show academic achievements. Some of the things I used was there was an outstanding achiever award in my grade that was given to like one person. And since I got it for 1 year, that was something I showed in my thing. There was a PSAT NMS QT. I think that was something that I added as well. And it's not only academics that you can put on your honors section. You can also put stuff like prefecture. And actually nowadays, I actually put my music certificate, which is, so I talked about taking Trinity, violin and stuff. So I don't think it's purely about, even if you haven't taken too many competitions, you should be fine as long you compensate for that in any other area. And especially like for majors that are not STEM related, psychology especially, there aren't too many competitions that you can enter. It's mostly based research, internship based and community service based.
Great. Okay. I think we are already at 11:30, and I hope we have answered most of the questions here, at least in the chat section. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining in. Before you guys leave, 2 things. A, we will be joining back again next weekend, Saturday, with 3 other speakers who have gone to different universities. Feel free to join back again, same link, next Saturday, same time, 10 a.m. IST. With that, I would like to thank all the 3 speakers for taking time from their schedule and talking to all of us. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Pranav. Thanks, Dhruv. Thanks, Aditya. Lovely talking to you guys. I'm sure you guys have enjoyed it. We have definitely enjoyed it, and I've learned quite a bit from the session today as well. Yeah. Thanks to all the participants for coming in and joining and tuning in. As I said, if in case you are interested to join back again, please come back again next weekend. The recording would be available on our YouTube channel at Revisor, probably by end of the day today. So you can go back and look at the recordings if in case you want to go through or go over particular topics again. Yep. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks for joining in. Thanks, Shubham. Bye-bye. Bye, guys.